Welcome to Atheists Speak Up. My name is Eileen Marie, and I'm the director of Michigan Atheists. And our guest today is Tom Shelberg. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Oh, thank you, Arlene.
Okay, Tom, we're here today to discuss your new book, and it's called Choosy Women and Cheating Men. Well, that's a very catchy title, but it reflects on a model course that you developed long before you retired from Henry Ford Community College, and there you were a biology professor. Now, not only was this course popular, which I hear it was at the college, but it earned you international respect because it was a profound scientific study of evolution and human behavior. So, what inspired you to do the research and create your model course and ultimately write the book, Choosy Women and Cheating Men?
Well, part of what inspired me was that even though I was a biology major, I was really interested in behavior. In fact, half of the courses I took at U of M were basically social science courses. But all the courses I took were bereft of any biology. You know, I took psych and soc and anthro courses, and there was no mention of any of the biological data about behavior. So, you know, the same was true for students all over the country, all over the world. In fact, anybody interested in studying human behavior pretty much had to take social science classes. They couldn't take any biological science classes. Some advanced biology majors were able to take courses in the biology of behavior, but there was nothing available for freshmen.
Right.
So I designed my course to stand alongside psychology and sociology as biology's contribution to the study of behavior. And yes, it was extremely popular. I had 200 students every semester in the class, from art majors to pre-med. And I think it was popular because it was so fresh. None of these students had ever heard any of this stuff. So the course was about genes and hormones and neurotransmitters and all the biological input, which, by the way, has been known, much of it, for 50 years. You know, there's been a lot of research on the biology of behavior, but it wasn't being taught. Tells you something about our educational system, I think. So anyway, I developed the course, and the biggest emphasis was on the evolutionary reasons why our behaviors evolved to be the way they are. I had a lot of stuff on genes and hormones and such in the book. But as the back of the book suggests, I was emphasizing mostly the why questions. You know, why are women so much more picky, more choosy than men? Why is it that humans have so much sex, so much more sex than virtually all species? Why is it even that tall candidates for public office are much more frequently selected? You know, why do we like football and team sports? A lot of questions you would never think about, but they all do relate to the biology of behavior, and all of them have evolutionary explanations.
Yes, you also mentioned in, I think it was that first chapter of your book, that even we're more attracted to attractive people than unattractive people. Certain people can get further in life, get more favors, get more perks based on their appearance.
Yes, and we used to think, what I was taught when I was taking classes was that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that it's all culturally determined, you know, our ideas about what is beautiful or what is sexy. But there's been a lot of research in recent years that shows that people universally all over the world in every culture value the same sorts of things and think the same kinds of features are attractive and sexy. And all this has to do with evolution.
Now, Tom, didn't you also take this model course and go, I think, in Spain to present to a professional audience there?
Well, yes, I was asked by the president of the International Society for Human Ethology to give one of the two keynote addresses in Salamanca. And I was really happy about that because this organization is all professors who do research. Virtually all the papers presented at the conferences are research papers. I was the only community college member of that organization out of several hundred people. I was the only one who wasn't a researcher, so I was really pleased that they valued, you know, what I was doing educationally.
Absolutely, and well, you should be.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, let's talk for a minute about cheating men. As I was reading your book, you cited that somewhere between 40 and 50% of married men have extramarital affairs or extramarital sex. Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned, in spite of how much they have to lose, and we're certainly aware of that, if they're politicians, if they're preachers, it seems like they're still willing to risk it for the extramarital sex. What about these cheating men?
Well, men are biological creatures. And humans are, historically, were somewhat polygynous. And it seems to be in our genes, men's genes at least, to be inclined to be interested in sex with other partners than their mates. Reproductively, it pays off for men to fertilize as many women as they possibly can. And this is basically true of other mammals. In fact, most all the vertebrates, the males are likely to cheat. They are likely to find sex wherever they can, even if they are mated, even with monogamous birds. The males frequently cheat whenever they have the opportunity. Females cheat too. Female birds and female humans cheat too. But they don't cheat as men do just for sex. Females tend to cheat more to get resources, to get better genes for their offspring, and so on. So cheating is natural. It's normal. It's biological. It has been favored by natural selection.
Well, so part of this discussion is about the Coolidge effect, and I love that story. I had never heard that before. Tell us about the Coolidge effect.
Oh, about President Coolidge?
Yes.
Yeah, it's too bad it got named after him because it isn't really fair. I don't think President Coolidge was such a rogue. But the Coolidge effect basically has been known to biologists, it's been known to zookeepers, it's been known to animal breeders and to students of human sexuality for decades. It's the inclination of males of virtually all species, including human males, to be especially stimulated by the prospect of sex with new partners. And this has evolved. In fact, if you breed cattle, for example, as I mentioned in the book, cattle are bred, selected for, the males have been bred for especially good genes for, and they father most of the cattle in the country today. And so they hook these males up to deliver sperm. They hook them up to artificial vaginas, right, and basically get the sperm this way. But in order to get the maximum amount of sperm, they have to have teaser cows for a little bit of natural stimulation. They make sure that the male can't get at the female, at the cow. But she's there to provide stimulation, and this does help a lot. They get good loads of sperm from the males, but they discovered very fast that quickly the male loses interest in that cow, and he just wants to roll over and play cow chips with the boys, you know, go to sleep, whatever, after he's had sex, had a couple of loads of sperm. But so he appears to be exhausted. It looks like he's about ready to die unless they bring in a new teaser cow. And then the male's ready to go again and again and again. Animal breeders know this. It's the Coolidge effect, the interest in new partners, and of course it pays for males because once a male has mated with a female, he can't produce any more offspring by her. So natural selection has favored being interested in new females. And boy, this stuff says a lot about men's interest in porn and why men are interested in new porn every month, why it says a lot about men's declining interest typically in sex with the same partner. It has an awful lot to, tells an awful lot about human sexual behavior.
Yeah.
And it got named after President Coolidge because supposedly he and Mrs. Coolidge were touring a government farm, and she was ahead of them on the tour, and noticed that there were like 100 chickens and only one rooster. And so she asked the guide, you know, is it true that that rooster mated with all those chickens? And the guide said, yes, Mrs. Coolidge, that chicken mates, that rooster mates many times every day. And so she said, apparently to shame the president, apparently he wasn't much of a rooster, she said, well, you tell that to the president. Well, when Calvin Coolidge came by a little later on the tour, and the guide told him that rooster mated with many, many times every day, Calvin Coolidge supposedly said, with same hen every time, and the guide said, no, President Coolidge, it's a different hen every time. And he said, well, you tell that to Mrs. Coolidge.
Yeah, right.
I don't think this story is probably true. But
it's a great story.
Yeah.
But for some reason or other, it did become the Coolidge theory.
Yes,
or the
they call
Coolidge
it, the
effect.
Scientists call it the Coolidge effect.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems to be well known throughout the scientific community and worldwide as the Coolidge effect.
Right, yes, that's what everybody calls it.
Well, now let's take a little turn here and take a look at Darwin, and now I want to know with these cheating men, how does Darwin and his natural selection and Robert Trivers, yes, I always mispronounce that name.
Of course, there's Bill Hamilton. There's been many.
And Robert Trivers' social theory, I know a little bit about Robert Trivers. How do these theories and these two guys help us to understand choosy women? What are they giving us about the choosy women?
Darwin was... Very few people know this, even a lot of scientists don't know this, but Darwin was extremely interested in behavior. He was not only interested in the evolution of structures and physiology, but he was keenly interested in behavior and did a lot of research, a lot of studies on so he was one of the first behavioral biologists in a sense. And what Darwin did basically was, by applying evolutionary thinking, natural selection theory, to understanding behavior, he just revolutionized the study of behavior. He made it possible for us finally to understand why behaviors are the way they are. You know, why men and women are different. Why we tend to be more altruistic to members of our own group. Everything from why we sleep to why you see certain aggressive behaviors, certain sexual behaviors in humans and other animals. Darwin's greatest contribution, I think, was not the discovery of evolution. That was earth-shaking, absolutely earth-shaking. Yeah, Darwin changed the whole world enormously. He changed science, philosophy, religion with the discovery of evolution. But I think his greatest discovery, his most important realization, was realization of natural selection. Natural selection theory allows us to explain why things are the way they are, as opposed to who, what, where, when, how. You know, the proximate mechanisms that explain. For example, you know, why do some people have dark skin and some people have light skin? Well, the immediate proximate explanation is that some people have more melanin than others, which of course is due to genes. But natural selection theory allows us to understand why it came to be this way, why people closer to the equator, the genes for darker skin were favored. Similarly, natural selection theory allows us to understand why males and females came to be different. You know, you get way beyond just what genes there are and what hormones and what neurotransmitters. Natural selection theory allows us to explain why things are this way rather than that way. And Trivers was one of the great scientists, or is still one of the great scientists who helped to refine and add to selection theory, but probably the greatest evolutionists since Darwin, who is since deceased, died of malaria, was Bill Hamilton. Hamilton revolutionized, starting in about the 1960s, he revolutionized evolutionary theory and behavioral evolutionary psychology and sociobiology by realizing that the natural selection does not operate on individuals directly, that the unit natural selection is favoring is the gene. Individuals are simply vehicles for genes. And by focusing on which genes survive and realizing that individuals are vehicles, behavioral biology just got such an incredible shot in the arm that, that's why we are where we are today, and that's partly why I wrote the book.
Exactly. Well, you also write quite a bit about the Choosy Women because of the great investment that they make into their offsprings.
Yes. Not just women, but of course females of virtually all species invest far, far more in the offspring. From the very start, with the egg and the sperm, the egg is hundreds of times, often thousands of times bigger than the sperm. Both contain the blueprints, the genes, but the investment is very unequal, really, because the egg contains all the nutrients for the developing embryo.
Yeah, you said in your book, I enjoyed your analogy that you used. Together, the male and the female bake the cake, but the female provides all the ingredients.
Yeah, the female provides all the cake. All the ingredients, and yet they split the profits. In the end, both have offspring that reproduce their genes, but the females put pretty much everything into it, and especially in the case with mammals. With mammals, the investment of the female is so many hundreds of times greater than the investment by the male. Most male mammals don't do hardly anything as far as being a parent. So that what this has led to, and Robert Trivers realized this, is females have been selected to be the choosy sex. Males must compete for that investment that females provide, and that's why males fight. That's why those male elk are locking their horns, and that's why those male alligators are fighting with one another, and that's why boys boast and fight more than girls do. It's something natural selection has favored, that females that males are much more competitive to go for that parental investment, and females are choosing the best genes and the best resources from males. And so in a sense, females have designed males. Males are kind of like a breeding experiment run by females. If you don't like the way males are, you should blame your grandmother and your great-grandmother and all your female ancestors for thousands of generations back, because females have designed males to be the way they are, not just in humans, but in virtually all species.
Now, it seems like some things maybe females don't have much choice in. We all have useless body parts left over from our past evolution. And you biologists call them vestiges.
Yes.
And for instance, we all have tails and gills and fish-type kidneys at a certain point in our embryonic lives. So why do these vestiges persist?
Well, they persist because evolution doesn't involve any planning or foresight or anything. It's just a natural process, and evolution builds, kind of jerry-built upon what went before. And so, for example, the reason why we have gill arches is because the first jaws in placoderm fish, 400 and some million years, the first jaws we know invertebrates developed from the first gill arch. And so jaws can't be produced unless the gill arch is produced first. You can't totally, redo the embryology every generation. And so a lot of the structures, the embryonic structures that are vestigial, are there because they are foundations from structures that evolved later. But we have lots of other vestiges too. We have little remnants of muscles, for example, behind our ears that most mammals use for moving their ears to cut the sound and communicate. Well, it's been thousands of generations, probably millions, since humans could move their ears, but we still have the vestigial muscles there. They never went away. You know, unless a structure is actually hurting survival, it probably is not going to be selected out. It'll just remain. There's a lot of reasons why vestiges persist, but boy, are they wonderful evidence for evolution.
Yes.
Yeah, they're powerful evidence that evolution must have happened.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Anyone, you and I were talking about this earlier, anyone who goes to a science museum, University of Michigan has an excellent museum, and stands in front of a board that shows the fetus from conception through birth, should be just astonished to see that here this fetus doesn't look like anything that we hear, because there it is with gills and a tail, and certainly doesn't resemble a human being at all.
Right? It's amazing that everybody doesn't see that. And you know what? There are vestigial behaviors too. There are a lot of vestigial behaviors that only more recently we've begun to realize. You know, like behaviors just like structures can become useless, don't make any sense in the current environment because environments change. For example, a dog going around in circles before lying down is a vestigial behavior. Or the habit a dog has of when you give him, if you give him little kibbles, and he'll eat them individually in his bowl, but if you give most dogs a bone or a big piece of meat, something that's a prize, they typically take it out of the dish and go away to some other place, usually protected, like underneath the dining room table, not because they have any sense of dining decorum, or underneath a bed, and they'll even growl ingraciously at their mistress who gave it to them in the first place.
Right.
Why is the dog, even a pampered pouch in a New York apartment, will behave this way? Why? This doesn't make any sense in a Fifth Avenue apartment, why a dog should be. But dogs have, like other animals and humans, have leftover behaviors that don't make much sense today. And one thing I didn't get into very much in the book, but a topic I think that I hope will be researched a lot in the future, is human vestigial behaviors, because we are kind of Neanderthals in the nuclear age. We have all kinds of we have all sorts of ridiculous behaviors that don't make much sense given our modern environment. Even like having a crush, falling in love at 15, 16, which youngsters do all over the world. Well, that made sense, you know, historically when we didn't have to go to college and so on. It doesn't make too much sense to have this powerful emotional falling in love sort of a feeling at that point now, you know. So a lot of our warlike behavior is vestigial. Yeah, it was adaptive for a long time. It doesn't make much sense now that we have nuclears of mass destruction and so on. So yeah, this biology behavior is really interesting stuff. I'm so glad I got into it.
Well, now I want for a minute for us to talk about the fact that we understand that many folks, typically those who oppose evolution, are completely convinced that humans are so marvelous and so complex that there certainly must have been a creator, an intelligent designer.
Well, you're certainly marvelous and complex, but I can't imagine why a creator would produce you, an atheist.
Well, many scientists, of course, disagree with an intelligent designer, since it's not science. But on the other hand, many scientists do agree that we humans are the product of unintelligent design.
Right, exactly. There's a chapter in the book on unintelligent design. The evidence is just overwhelming, and I present quite a bit of it. The evidence is just astounding that the design out there of animals and plants and humans is terrible. There are all kinds of horrible design problems. Consider just our backbone. We have basically the same backbone as all the rest of the vertebrates, right down to the number of bones and the same positioning of the discs and where the nerves come out. and yet all the other vertebrates virtually are all horizontal. We in the last couple of million years have become vertical, and we have terrible problems with pinched nerves, hernias, slipped discs. About half of all people have major back problems at some point in their life because it's a terrible, terrible design. How could one believe that an intelligent designer would create something? But there are many, many other examples of really terrible design, which is what you'd expect from evolution. Evolution doesn't have, there's no planning, no foresight, no intentionality. So, of course, you'd expect problems with design if we were naturally designed by natural selection. So.
Well, if someone could think it through, they wouldn't have put our esophagus in our air tube.
Right, yeah.
Where we can easily choke.
Yeah, the opening to our esophagus and to our larynx, our air passageway, are so close together that thousands of people, often children, die from choking, which has not happened to other animals because they don't have that problem. The opening to the esophagus and the air passageway became moved close together because of the evolution of speech. So it's another design flaw. It's another bad aspect of bad design. You know, Richard Dawkins has, for example, said, and several others have said, that given the evidence from design, it's not possible. It's not even theoretically possible there could have been an intelligent designer.
Right.
Yeah. But there are many, many problems. You know, why would an intelligent designer produce parasites? Horrible, horrible parasites that disfigure and kill millions of people.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes. Well, Tom, you know, for me, I just had this thirst for science when I was in college, and I went to several different colleges where I could really study anthropology and get some deeper answers. But certainly your book has filled a lot of dark holes for me. Thank you.
Well, I hope so.
I hope so.
Thank you,
for being
Arlene.
with us, Tom.
Yeah.
It's been real pleasant.
Oh, thank you.